Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Passive Investing Show. I'm your host, 𝗖𝗍𝗶 𝗖𝗽, and I'm joined by my co-host, August Biniaz. We have another great show for you today. Please like and subscribe as it helps us build our channel and allows us to keep bringing you great content and expert guest speakers. Our mission is to empower investors to earn passive income through real estate investing. Today, we are joined by Terrie Schauer. Now, Terrie has 20 plus years experience as a real estate investor and property manager. Terrie is CEO and founder of My Room Gestion, a property management and real estate consulting group based in Montreal, Canada. She is the leading authority on applying mindfulness principles to real estate investing and has written the #1 best-selling book on the topic, Mindful Landlord. Co-host of 2 wealth and real estate podcasts, the Mindful Wealth podcast and the Real Estate Investors Club podcast. Her clients include business owners, executives, professionals who want to hedge the rat race and gain financial freedom through real estate. Her passion is to help fellow investors act for both profit and peace of mind. Now, August and I believe this interview with Terrie will bring great value to both passive and active investors looking to get more than just profits from their real estate investments. Welcome to our show, Terrie.
Welcome, Terrie.
Guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Terrie, let's jump right into things. Could you start off by telling us a little bit about your background and your start in real estate, please?
Okay, so let's rewind the clock a bit. So I started in real estate when I was 19. I was studying philosophy. I moved to University of Toronto from Montreal, and there was no space in student residence. So I ended up in this like co-op house, which had no manager. We were like 15 university kids, and it was completely disorganized. And so basically I moved out of my parents' house into this house, and they voted me property manager the next day.
Oh, no.
So that's kind of how things started. And then I managed this house while I was studying at U of T. And then after I moved to Vancouver to keep studying at Simon Fraser, and I liked the model so much. I liked the property managing, but I also liked this idea of kind of having a community of young people sharing a house in a more informal way, like not the kind of student residence model, that I rented a house in Vancouver and started the same thing.
Okay.
And so that was a way to kind of like live in a community, and then also to like, lower my own rent overhead. And then when I finished studying in Vancouver, I moved back to Montreal, and I went knocking on my dad's door and said, "Dad, I've now been doing this for 5-6 years. Do you want to lend me some down payment money? I think it's time for me to buy a house and set up the same model." And that's what I did. I bought a triplex in like the not great part of Montreal at the time, and set it up as like a student housing where people rented rooms. We furnished the rooms, and then that's how things got started.
Awesome. Is it called house hacking? I believe. Is that a term that's used for?
I have no idea.
I've heard house hacking. I'm like, and maybe in Alberta they call it that.
Maybe, I'm not too sure. I've heard of it too, but we'll figure it out.
Great. So now talk to us about the transition of where that turned into an actual business, and obviously just doing some research on you. You're extensively involved in real estate investing with podcasts and YouTube shows, and you've authored a book. But how did it turn from something that you did as a side hustle, if you may, into an actual business that you dedicated so much of your time to?
Well, it was really kind of gradual. And I think it was also, as what happens with a lot of people when they start doing real estate, is there's kind of this transition period where they ramp up however they're doing their investments or however they're doing their real estate activities. And then it becomes their main thing. And so like, basically I managed properties and then, bought my first 2 properties when I was still studying. And my plan at the time was to be a university professor. I was doing a PhD, and that's what kind of gave me, like, I had a long period of time where I wasn't super busy, because I guess as a PhD student, like you're not working 9 to 5, you have like a flexible schedule. And so I kind of like managed the properties that I had as this lifestyle thing. Like I was aware that, maybe I was doing something productive for the future, but I was in my mid-20s, and I wasn't really thinking, what kind of lifestyle is this going to give me when I'm 40? And so I kind of went through this whole period where like slowly I realized that the academic life was not for me. And then as I was getting closer to the end of my PhD, and I realized, it's like I woke up one day and realized, wow, okay, I own 2 buildings. I'm an investor. I've been managing properties for like, by that time I started when I was 19, I got my PhD at 29. So I had 10 years of property management experience without even really kind of realizing it. And then when I got to the end of my PhD, I was like, okay, well, I need to find something else to do. And I think maybe real estate might be the thing. And then I didn't really have the confidence at that time to say, okay, I'm just going to do this full time. Like I'd basically like lived my life in academia really. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get myself a job. So I had an opportunity. This is like a sidebar. I used to kickbox semi-professionally, and I got an opportunity to go to France to pursue that. But I needed a day job. And so at that time, I got off the plane in France and was like, okay, I have this real estate experience. I'm going to get a job in a property management company. And that's what I did. And then I worked like basically in a property management company for the 2.5 years I was there, with the goal that when I come back home, I'm going to start that business myself. So it's like, I wanted to sort of get paid to learn how to run a property management company.
Oh, that's great. You've really lived your life. Hey,
Yeah, I really, yeah.
You got to go to school. You got to be involved in real estate for years and years, and you got to go to France.
Well, what she said is she didn't have the confidence about real estate investing, but she had the confidence to kickbox.
Yeah.
So that's, you know.
Wow, that's impressive. That's really cool.
Okay.
Good for you.
Okay, great. So I guess having a PhD and being an academic, and also wanting to be a teacher or a professor, that's a great foundation when it comes to coaching, and that's one of the services you provide. So talk to us about your coaching services. Who do you help? And talk to us more about that, please.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that started happening, so let's say, whatever, when I was 30, I kind of started real estate became my main gig. Then I worked in a property management company. Then I came home when I was 33, I started a property management business, and then like kind of struggled. Like I did my broker's license. I think I ended up buying another property, but basically like I had at that time like 9 doors, and that was like very stable for, a long time. And then I like quietly built my business in my corner. And then it took a really long time of doing that before I sort of started seeing real success at it. Like it took like years, like 6-7 years before I could start to be like, okay, now all of a sudden my brokering business, like I have more phone calls than I want to service. I have more property management contracts coming in than I want to take care of. And so I guess like as I observed the success happen, I kind of, thought a little bit about what is it that prevented me from getting to the next level each time. Right. And when you kind of like look back at your journey, you can say, well, okay, why did I plateau? Because when you're getting good at stuff, like for a long time, like there will be like a growth period. And then I find you kind of sit there for a number of years, and then boom, like you go through an unstable growth period, and then you kind of sit at a plateau. And I guess like, 2-3 years ago, when I came up with the idea for the book, and I started, helping people out a little bit more with informational type stuff, it's like, I was able to sit down and think, okay, well, what allowed me to like get to those different kind of plateaus, and how can I reverse engineer it and like try to give people some of that information? And then the book and the podcast really became a vehicle for that. And with the 2 podcasts, like the Real Estate Investors Club podcast is more kind of informational and like really getting into the detail type stuff, a little bit of what you guys try to do with real estate. And then the Mindful Wealth podcast is kind of bringing in mindset and a little bit of also, what are we doing in the world? Because I feel like very often when we get obsessed with, success, and like I call them like external markers of success, we kind of lose sight of what kind of a world are our actions generating, and how is it actually making me feel inside? Like it's possible to have a full bank account, but to not be happy. So to kind of explore that issue, because I think ultimately we get into real estate because we think in some way it's going to make us happy. And so we have to manage it in such a way that the bank balance actually has meaning, or the number of doors actually have meaning.
Oh, that's
the
really,
mindset
really great.
connected to the venture.
Yeah. And you also authored a book called The Mindful Landlord. Maybe you can tell us where that idea came from, and more about that book, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's really a little bit what I, kind of just explained, in the sense that it tries to marry this like nuts and bolts, um, to-do list of things that you need to do when you want to succeed in real estate investing, or when it's really kind of a property management book. So it's also like, how can you be a successful small time investor? And then how can you manage your properties in such a way that it gives you a good quality of life, whether you do it yourself or whether you end up hiring someone. So I think one of it's what I call like that. The first half is what I call like a playbook, where people can really just have like almost a reference manual of, basic calculations. What kind of things do you want to have in leases? How do you select your tenants? How do you build a power team? Like quite classic things. And then the second part of the book is kind of deals with two aspects of, you could say maybe a mindset and what I call heart set. So like the mindset would be, you need to optimize your brain for success. Like very often, and I notice for me, when I talk about those plateaus, it's as if because I was stuck at a certain level of optimal mindset vis-a-vis certain things, I wasn't able to, in the external world, get to the next level. And so part of it is like, how you optimize, let's say, your mental performance. And then when we talk about heart set, that's kind of this more zoom out of, how is my well-being doing, and how do I feel with what I'm doing as an individual in relationship to society.
Great. And some of that advice and some of those the systems can also be utilized for other businesses. It doesn't necessarily have to be
Absolutely.
real estate related. So I'm sure those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I might even like add something to that. Like a lot of the stuff that I learned actually came through, I had a career as a combat sport person, right? And like a lot of those ideas come from that world. And I found that they helped me function really well in real estate, but the lessons kind of came from I guess a kind of a tough environment where you really like can't succeed unless you really get your mind in the best possible shape.
Yeah, and combat sports are very similar to the world of business, because a lot of sports you play them, and you don't play combat sports.
Absolutely.
Somebody in there trying to take your head off or choke you out or do other things to you. Same thing in business. If you don't perform, and if you might have a great business idea, but if you're not performing the right way, there's somebody else that will come take that void and take over. So
And I love
very
how
similar.
and I love how you're tying mindfulness with business, because a lot of people just have a vision of what success looks like to them, and they lose themselves in the way.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it just doesn't make sense. So keeping mindful while trying to succeed it's a win-win. So I really love that.
Awesome.
That's incredible.
Awesome. So tell us about your plans. Like, so currently you're an active investor, you have your own portfolio. What do you see in the future? Is the plan to grow that portfolio? Is the plan to possibly bring on private equity, working with investors? Talk to us about what is your vision, because you seem like a visionary. So tell us about it.
Well, that's very kind of you. So when we're talking about plateaus, it's actually very interesting, because like I'm in a kind of a big transition phase at the moment, and I realize that I'm in one of those phases of going like this. So, for a long time, I was running a property management business and then basically living off the cash flow that my investments generated. And I was like quite comfortable there, because it's quite a comfortable place to be. Like basically, I managed my portfolio, and my portfolio was generating enough income to support my lifestyle. And so it's just a comfortable, not necessarily growth minded place to be. But then, I kind of realized the power of, first of all, getting into multifamily, because I was kind of stuck in this residential financing thing for a long time. And so I mean, this is a Canadian show. So like the Canadian financing rules are the same across the country. So like if you're working in the less than 5 door space, you're dealing with residential financing, and you're always going to be sort of trapped by your income. And then learning the, financing game that happens in 6 doors and more. Once you learn that, then you're able to really level up, because it just becomes a question of how much down payment money you have. And then what then becomes the next block is the down payment money. And then that's when people start getting into joint ventures. And then when you start getting into joint ventures, then you need to have, a way of making those contacts, a way of building those contracts, of finding deals. You need a deal pipeline, and you need like a sort of a power team that can handle that. and then you need a property management company that can handle higher volume. So that's exactly the transition place that I'm at. I'm in the process of restructuring my property management company so that we can take on that additional business and working more joint venture partnerships in order to, continue to expand and do bigger things. And also, the people I joint venture with often are people who they don't quite dare to get into real estate themselves. They have some down payment money, but it's as if they want to be partner with someone more experienced who has the knowledge, because they're a bit lacking that confidence. And like, I think that puts me in a sweet spot where I'm happy because I kind of want to help people succeed at this, and I feel like when you have knowledge, be it in whatever sphere it is, like the kind of highest level of that is, well, help other people use that knowledge to realize whatever their vision is.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. No, for sure. And especially since you've been an investor now for 20 years, you've already been through a couple of cycles, been through 2008 and 2019 COVID. So you definitely have the experience. And also furthermore, with your experience with property management, obviously that's a very important component of the business, the management side of it. Even if you are looking to grow your business into larger multifamily projects where you can bring on a third-party property manager, having that experience in property manager, you can oversee the company, making sure that they're performing their job correctly in managing the properties that you have, and also bigger projects. And you make a great point when it comes to residential, less than 6 units, or commercial or multifamily when it's above those units. It's a total different game, and it's looked at as by the banks and the active investors as really not. It kind of changes a bit because they look at it as buying a business, because everything is assessed on the NOI. What is the income the property is making, and then upon that income depending on that income is what the bank is willing to finance you and provide you debt. So it's a great journey that you're on, and
really great journey,
great trajectory you're on. So we're really excited to watch you.
Multifamily world.
For sure,
side of thing.
for sure.
Economy of scale is sky's the limit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, so I think I bought my first eightplex. Maybe it's actually been 2 years. And so and then that just opens all these doors, and you're like, wow, I don't have these debt ratios. It's just not a problem anymore. So okay, now we just need, now we just need down payment money, and then you can sort of go as far as you want to push the thing.
Totally. Good for you. And you know what I love, that you're tell us about being as a woman CEO. You're this powerful woman CEO.
Literally powerful.
Literally powerful woman CEO.
She could outbid you and put you in a chokehold. So.
I love it.
Go ahead.
Maybe you could tell us about some of the challenges that you faced along the way.
As a woman CEO.
As a woman CEO.
In a male-dominated industry, if you may.
Yeah. I don't know how much for me that the industry has really been a struggle. And maybe it's also because coming from, again, the combat sports world, especially when I started, things have become a bit better now. But when I started, I was always the only girl in the room, and it wasn't even weird. And then it's not that you're negotiating contracts with men. It's no, you're sparring with men. And so in a way, I guess I was just sort of always in that kind of environment with a skewed gender ratio. So I almost didn't really even see it. It would more be moments where I just, if I'm in class and I look down the row and I'm like, wow, I'm the only girl here today. Or if you go to specific investor events or something, or often when I'm, on site or something, and I'm aware all of a sudden, wow, I'm the only woman here. So I don't know. I don't feel like there was all that much kind of blowback in terms of, sexism in the environment or glass ceilings or anything like that. I think actually, if you're self-employed and you do kind of do your own stuff, which in investment you kind of have to, I think that's a nice space where if there were to be any prejudices or any kind of a boys club, it kind of doesn't affect you, because it really depends on how you want to do business. So, I think that's nice. I do have to say that, I have a young son. I'm a mom. I'm married. And so if anything, it's more the family dynamic, I think, that really, I find it to be a challenge. Like, maybe when my son gets older, it's going to be a different story, but like I've really been very hands-on looking after him and like, been his primary caregiver. And like, I've been aware that, my male colleagues, like we laugh now because like they're always like, Terry, I don't understand why you're so stressed. I'm like, do you drive your kid to school? Do you pick them up at 2:30 in the afternoon when they finish? Do you take them to their like sports events? And it's all like, oh, my wife does that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's more like that kind of thing. Like I don't feel like there's any, sort of attitude problems or whatever it is. It's just that I think, if you're a woman and you choose to have a family, like it's very likely that you're going to end up assuming more of that responsibility. And, I don't know that I really have anything very intelligent to say about it. I think it's just, it
It
is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I thought you were
Yeah.
busy because of all of the services that you provide, but now I found out that you're also a mother to boot. So good for you. Maybe, how do you manage your time? Like, how do you manage your time and do all these different things?
Like as best I can.
Okay.
No, but
Make it
I mean,
happen.
I think if I kind of can bring the mindfulness thread back in, so what I didn't tell you in the timeline is that basically like the idea for the book and this like, renewed interest in the like slowing down aspect really came after I had my son. And before that, I kind of used to just like, work all the time and be in this like super performance mode kind of all the time. And then when I had him and I realized like, no, like there are other things in life that are important besides just, making money, and that like that sort of human connection. And you choose to have a child. Now you have to kind of look after them. And that I'm now very protective of the way I spend my time. So when I pick him up, he just started school when I, used to pick him up from daycare, like at 5 o'clock, the phone is off, and then if I need to do something else, it's going to be after he goes to bed. But like, I'm very, how can I say, psychologically rigid about protecting my family time. And it's not just being there physically, it's being there mentally as well. Because I think it's not better if you're there fiddling on your cell phone. Like you might as well not be at dinner, just like get up, go handle your 10-minute phone call and come back.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So did you become a master at delegation or to free up some of your own time so that you could kind of, take time to be mindful and spend that quality time with your family?
I mean, like, so, if we're being very transparent about like those plateau levels, I think I'm at a point now where I'm trying to, use leverage delegation more perhaps than I used to. So like if we had this conversation 6 months from now, I would like to say yes to that. I would say it's more a question of stepping back, because I think sometimes when we get very wrapped up in our ambition, like sometimes it's okay to grow at a slower rate. Sometimes it's okay to plateau for a while. And I think part of that was also, like I said, when I would have my male colleagues calling me like, during bedtime, and I'm like, okay, decline the call. No, it's my kid's bedtime now. And I'm aware that if I were to work at the same rate that I used to, I could probably go faster, make more money, do more. But in the end, for what? Like
Totally.
if you kind of check in with why did I really get into this in the first place, which is to have financial freedom, to have peace of mind, to not be like a slave to a job. Like if you just check in with that, it's not about making the extra whatever $100,000 or something. It's really about having the quality of life that you want. And so you have to carry that into the micro decisions. Otherwise, you can get wrapped up in something else.
Absolutely. And life goes by so fast. So it's like, you know what? Slow down sometimes. And I love that she literally slows herself down to enjoy life sometimes. Good for you.
Yes,
I'm taking
yes.
note of everything. I love it. Good advice. I'm going to be calling her. Hey, how do I do
No,
this?
no, what she talks about these plateaus, actually
Yeah.
a lot of, top gurus when it comes to self-built or performance discuss it. It's like immersion, right? You go into these periods of immersion and hyper focus into an idea, getting something done, if it's a book or if it's a website. So it's great. But let's talk about right behind you, we see the Mindful Wealth podcast. So talk to us about the podcast. Talk to us more about it, and let our viewers know about your podcast.
Yeah. So actually, I during the beginning of COVID, I interviewed the writer of a book called Mindful Money, Jonathan Dio, who then went on to become my co-host on the Mindful Wealth podcast. And we just found that we had a very similar approach to building wealth. So he's a financial planner. He wrote Mindful Money. I wrote The Mindful Landlord. And so it just kind of, it's as if this project sort of evolved out of it. And our goal with the show is to really explore the idea of how you can give wealth meaning in your life in a way that is not socially destructive and in a way that ultimately like builds your fulfillment, you know? And like we talk about, I guess, wealth as a bit of a practice, in the sense that it's not something you try to acquire and then you get to like the end point of that game. No, it's something that if you apprentice yourself to a certain system for building wealth, you can allow it to make you a better person as you know, become a more effective human being. And that eventually, if you ask yourself the questions of like, what am I doing with my wealth generating activities? How am I spending that money? Hopefully you can actually help better the world around you, and it not just be so much about, you know, our little things. And these are complex issues, you know, like some of the guests we have on the show are like economists who talk about investor capitalism and how investor capitalism is kind of transforming the wealth space and moving business away from, you know, something that's product driven and more towards financial returns. And so we kind of get into like the meaning of that. Let's say we had like a happiness researcher who looks at what are the things that actually bring us happiness, if that's what we're looking for. Is it more money? Is it being prettier? Is it losing weight? Or is it gratitude, charity, family, connection? Yeah.
Incredible.
Amazing.
Okay,
Amazing.
amazing. I'm going to
Great.
jump on the podcast after and listen to something like
Great
that.
story.
That's really cool. Awesome. So I guess we're going to jump into the next segment of our show where we do the 10 championship rounds,
I'm
championship
ready.
rounds to financial freedom.
I'm ready.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. Who was the most influential person in your life?
Oh man, that's terrible. You know, I actually like, I really didn't have very many mentors. I think maybe this is one of these also like female comments, in that I think if you're a woman growing up, whatever, when I did, there were not that many women who sort of had it all. There weren't even that many women necessarily in positions that I wanted to see myself in. And so I was kind of observing the men who succeeded, but it's as if I couldn't really properly look up to them because it was not a direct correlation. So I'm going to answer your question without answering it.
I love it. Okay, I love it. What is the number one book you recommend?
Obviously my book,
Yeah, of course.
Mindful Landlord.
The Mindful Landlord. Now, if you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh man, that's great. You know what? I would have told myself like have kids way earlier and have many.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
All right. What's the best investment you've ever made?
You know, the best investment I've made is really in education, and coaching. You know, I've done various like personal development seminars over the years, Tony Robbins, Landmark, and like that's what has allowed me always to conquer the different plateaus. And you know, a lot of I always find it strange when people, you know, have trouble signing over a bit of money for some coaching like that, because it can like literally transform your life if you let it. And so, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I like that. Now, what's the worst investment you've ever made?
That's a great question. You know, I haven't done any real estate deals that have done very horribly. Probably like a consumer good. Yes, I know. You know what? I know exactly what it is. I wanted to buy this, like a white BMW. That was like my symbol of success at a certain point, and it was like a rear wheel drive in Montreal winter. I got pregnant. It was a two-door car. I couldn't fit behind the wheel anymore. And then I had to unload it at a huge loss. I mean, it was nice to be able to say, I got this, you know, status symbol for a certain ephemeral amount of time, but it was definitely not a good investment.
Not a good investment.
Yeah.
Now, how much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number, if you will?
Well, I would rather have stable cash flow than you know, a big dollar amount in the bank, but I don't have an extravagant lifestyle. I don't know, maybe, you know, 200K in passive income. I'm good.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. Oh man. I don't know, probably like Socrates or something, you know, like a dead philosopher, Heidegger, maybe.
Very good. Perfect. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now?
I would run a martial arts gym.
Awesome. Now I can't wait for her answer on this one. Book smarts or street smarts?
Both. Definitely both. No, definitely both. And it's a great question. And I think like, if you think you can do stuff without one of those two, it's a problem. I mean, it's a problem being so minded on the practical that, you know, you don't look at the sort of big picture. And it's a real problem to be so stuck in the big picture that, you know, you can't make an omelet. Like,
Yep, absolutely. Last question. If you had $1 million cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
Bitcoin. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
To the moon.
SpaceX.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm gonna be boring. I would probably buy another building.
Woohoo! Love
Good.
it.
Multifamily.
Multifamily,
Perfect.
baby. Terry.
That's
Thank
great.
you so much. That's a wrap for our questions. Last question. What's the best way people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find me pretty much on any social media. So LinkedIn, Facebook, and my website, terrieschauer.com. It's like my name at the bottom of the screen. And you can obviously find my book on Amazon, Mindful Landlord. So yeah.
Amazing.
You're
amazing.
You're amazing, Terry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
for
Appreciate
sharing
you taking the
everything.
time coming
Yeah.
on. I'm sure people that got a lot of value listening to you, and we hope to have you back on as your portfolio grows and as you grow in the space. So
And
looking forward to that.
Yeah, and everybody just slow down a bit, be mindful of every day how you're feeling, and success will follow. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.